Get the keys to the kingdom. Get the keys to the kingdom.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Come on, give him a hand. That's a lot of music coming out. Just some drums. Amen. Damien is getting better and better. I remember when he first started, he said, man, I think I'm going to play the drum. They're like, really? Next thing I know, he went on and bought him a djembe. And I was at the house doing something. He drove out and him and Jazz had like a little, Jazz showed him the basics and he started practicing. I was like, well, this is incredible. He's come a long ways. He's doing a good job, man. Good job. Today I have a concern and hopefully a word of encouragement as we seek to take this message of the good news of our Hamashiach worldwide. Starting to see some things that that I've seen before, but never on this level. And I think it's because of the way the Most High is waking us up in this last day. So, open your Bible to Ezekiel chapter 37. Ezekiel 37. Most of us know this. Most of us know this passage. It's tremendous. Ezekiel 37. Beginning at verse 1. Now you all, whatever version of the Bible you're reading, you can read along. And we will, when I say, come on, let's read together, I want y'all to read so they won't think worldwide we in this room all by ourselves. Amen. Amen. It's a tremendous passage, Ezekiel 37. And it says, like, it reads like this in the King James. Y'all read with me. Ready, begin. The hand of Yahuwah was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit of Yahuwah, and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was, talk back. It was what? And caused me to pass by them round about, and behold, there were, talk, where? It says very many. There was very many. It was a whole lot. And lo, they were, talk back. Very dry. They were very dry. And he said unto me, Yahuwah said to him, this is what he's saying. Yes. Son of man, talk back. Can these bones live? And I answered, come on, roll with me. Thou knowest. And he said unto me, prophesy unto these bones. And say unto them, what? O ye dry bones. Are you sure that what he said to preach? That don't sound like a sermon of nice, flowery language there. What does he want to call them? Read again. O ye dry bones. O ye what? Dry bones. Well, they'll say to me today, pastor or Moreh or teacher, they'll say, that's not politically correct for you to just get up and call the whole congregation dry bones. Can't you find another way to say it a little softer, a little nicer? You're going to run them off. No, Master said, say, oh, ye dry bones. Hear what? The word of Yahuwah. Thus said watch this, just say Yahuwah Elohim unto these bones. Now listen to this promise. Behold, I will cause what? Breath. To enter into you, and you shall live. And I will lay sinew upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you. Now watch this. And what? With what? Woo! I'm going to not only deal with the bones, I'm going to work it all the way to the skin. And put what? Breath. In you, and you shall live. And you shall what? Know. You shall what? Know that I am Yahuwah. I want to speak really from this subject. I want to deal with this passage dealing with dry bones. Y'all repeat after me, say dry bones. Dry bones. Be seated. Dry bone. Ezekiel is known for his far out visions, if you please. Ezekiel was in captivity, and as a prophet, he was given strange visions. Most of us are aware of who Ezekiel is. He's the one that saw the vision of a wheel in the middle of a wheel. He's the one that had the vision of the temple, that when you do its measurements, you'll discover it creates the image of a man. He's the one who took a reed and measured the city and told us about the river that runs from the midst of the city. This is the one who saw visions. He saw angels. He saw visions of beasts. And in this passage, he has a vision of a graveyard. A graveyard. He says the hand, this is interesting, of Yahuwah was upon me. And of course, those of us who are in Hebrew, studying Hebrew, what is the letter in the alphabet that represents the hand? Who said that? Right, it's the what? No, well, that's palm hand. Good, but not the one I'm looking for. Yo. And some people will say yod. All right? And the yod or the yod representing the hand, it means power or the strength. So we're talking about the power of Yahuwah was upon me, or the strength. And the idea means not only power and strength, but the responsibility for what I'm doing is in the hands of someone else. In other words, I'm going to do it, but the one responsible for the results will not be me. It will be, in this case, the Most High Yah. He says, I was under his hand. The hand of Yah was upon me. And he says, and it carried me out in the ruach. That's the Hebrew word there behind that word spirit. And in its basic form, it's the word the wind. So it is to say that he carried me by the wind. Y'all catch that? This is a picture of a man having a vision of flying from one place to another place. We would call it being transported today. This is some stuff that if you read it in face value, sounds like some futuristic Star Trek stuff, to where all of a sudden he's minding his own business. A hand comes, picks him up, and then by the spirit of that same hand, he is relocated.
Yeah.
Now watch this.
That's good.
I ain't gonna keep you guys long day. Not to a palace. Because everybody in the Christian church and everybody in all these fake religions, anytime they're operating under what they consider to be the Spirit of God, it always leads them to some beautiful place, paradise, a beautiful place where you don't have to, you know, there's no struggle anymore. It's a place of prosperity, a place of wealth, a place of renown. Whenever you hear these so-called people talking about they're being led by the Spirit, then the next thing they're going to say, so look at how beautiful my house is, and look what car I'm driving, and I don't have no more bills, and everybody goes crazy. But here, a prophet says, I was under the power of Yah. I was being held by his hand and being led by him, and I ended up in a graveyard. You sure you want to, Bernard, you sure you want to, sure you want to follow him? Because you might end up in a valley, I'm looking at it, that is full of bones. And he caused me to pass by them round about. He set me down on the bones. I know it says in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones, which if you set somebody in the midst of a valley full of bones, they've landed on the bone. This scene is outrageous. First of all, we don't like graveyards. That's some new thing. When you see a brother hanging out around a graveyard, oh, he's been hanging out with somebody else who talked to him about going to a graveyard. We don't just hang out in graveyards. That's not our thing. Because the first time we touch a skull, a femur, a phalange, a rib cage, and we hear it crack under our feet, we like, I'm out of here. Why? Because graveyards are for the dead, not the living. That's why it's such an amazing story when we get to the new, what they call the New Testament, when the Messiah goes to the land of the Gadarenes, and we find a descendant of Gad, one of the 12 tribes, living in a graveyard. Because that's not something that we do. He's let down in the midst of these bones, and he says, and there were very many, and they were very dry. Two things we see. First thing we see is that this is not some small graveyard that has 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 bodies buried there. We find ourselves in a graveyard, watch this, where an entire nation of people have been deposited. It's a huge graveyard. And cousin, this is a true story. He said it was an open valley, which means that whoever killed them had no respect for them, not even enough to give them a decent burial. It gets further, it gets worse, it gets worse. It says their bodies must have just, watch this, laid out on the ground until all of the skin, then the muscles, and then the tendons rotted away. Then you're left with nothing but skeletal remains. And then the animals and the insects come and they then clean the bones until there's nothing left on the bones. And if that's not enough, then the sun bleaches the bone every day until there's no moisture at all in the bones. And the writer says, and they were very dry. I read it. Which means as soon as he will step down, he heard, oh. Boom. In the graveyard. And while he was there, taking in the scene, Yahuwah asked him a question. Said, son of man, can these bones live? Can these bones live? These bones. These bones that were deposited, killed on top of, left down on top of the ground, no burial. Everything is rotted away. Nothing left but dry skeletal remain. Can they live? It's a very interesting contextual point that I want to bring out here, and that is, he really was not asking him, were these bones alive at one time? He was saying, can they live again? Because the very fact that there are bones there means at one time these were people. But as they lay in this open valley, bleached dry by the sun. Y'all still in this room with me? Watch this. They are not only dead, but unrecognizable. Nobody knows who they are, not even Ezekiel. He just sees a valley of dry bones. And the master said, can they live? And he answered right. And this is the way you should always answer when Yah asks a question. Because unlike us, when Yah asks a question, he never asked a question seeking information. He never asked a question because he's been stomped by something. He never asks a question that he does not already know the answer to. He doesn't ask a question in order for you to help him understand a situation or a circumstance. Anytime he asks a question, it's because he already knows the answer. He's trying to see if you know what he already knows. And in this case, the prophet said, I ain't touching that one. You know. He said, man, shoot, this is, can I say it like this? This is above my pay grade. Why? Because if this man or this woman that I'm standing on right now, I mean, if they would have just passed out 2 minutes ago and you said, can they be revived? I might have said, oh yeah, for sure, if we get to them right now. There's been a couple days ago, been like, maybe not. But you brought me to a situation to where it looks like all hope is gone. So, Instead of instead of trying to put myself out there as somebody super spiritual, how about I just do this? Right. You know. Right. You and I would do well to take a lesson from Ezekiel. Because nothing is too hard for Yah. He said, thou knowest. Verse 4. And he said unto me, prophesy. We read it. He said, prophesy. Which is a very interesting word, by the way. Because the word prophesy, when you look at it in the Hebrew, it obviously means the work of a prophet. Right? So the prophet is to prophesy. But it also carries with it the connotation of preach. So prophecy and preaching really goes together. When a person claims to be a prophet, they're also claiming to be a preacher. And when a person is claiming to be a preacher, he's also claiming to be a prophet. Because a prophet, or one who declares the message of the Most High, is doing two things, always, sometimes three. But for sure, he's always speaking about the situation at hand. And then, if he's a good prophet or preacher, he always has a message of the future concerning the situation at hand. So he said unto me, he said, I want you to preach or prophesy upon these bones. And here's your sermon. This is what he said. Here's your message. This is what you say to them. Oh, you dry bones. Now, when I first read that, I said, that is a harsh way to start a message. Back in the Christian church, they used to teach all the young preachers. When you get up to preach, maybe have a little joke or something to break the ice. Then say some kind words to draw your audience in. And then once you have them, then you make sure, and they give you all these like little points, and they definitely will say, you don't want to say things that's going to offend your listening audience. But then, you know, I read this Bible and discover that none of the prophets in the Bible ever followed that particular rule of preaching. So here's your sermon. So what is it? Say, oh, you dry bones. Well, that's a cold thing to call me. Well, John called the Pharisees vipers and snakes. Did y'all read that? And I could go on with the prophets. They didn't have no problems calling names. Jeremiah called the people a swift dromedary who's always sniffing up the wind. Which really means you're a camel in heat that's always welcoming anybody to come along and have sex with you. Prophets were not who you really think they were. Prophets had to, here it is, tell it like it is. You're a dry bone. So what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to tell them this. Behold, I will cause breath to enter into them, and you shall live. And I will lay sinew upon you, which is our tendons, and bring flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live, and you shall know. And here's the key, that I am Yahuwah. Verse 7, he says, so I prophesied. That's powerful. No argument between the prophet and Yah. He hears the message, he preaches the exact word. He said, I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, he said, I heard a noise. And this is where really I want to kind of talk about my message and then let y'all go for the Shabbat. He said, I preached to the dry bones, and then I heard a noise. So first, it was amazing that I'm sitting here in this valley with bones everywhere, dead men just everywhere. I'm standing on top of them and I'm preaching, and now I hear something. See, in a graveyard, come on in the room with me. Y'all not gonna be long. You start hearing something. Why? Because nobody, even the preacher, nobody expected for there to be any noise from the graveyard. He said, so I prophesied as I commanded, and I prophesied there was a noise. What the noise was, I have no idea, but he heard it. He said, and behold, watch this, a shaking. Now that part, most of us, the noise bad enough, but now things are shaking. Remember, these are you. These people are not walking around with a halo. It's not some old white people with beards. These are brothers. This brother right here had dreadlocks. He was carried by one of his locks into a vision. So this brother with dreads, man, he in the graveyard. It's noisy and it's now shaking. And so as he's calling them all kind of names, you dry bones, hear the word of, it's shaking, and he notices something, which is very strange. And once you catch this, don't miss this. He notices that it's not a random shaking. It's purposeful shaking. The bones are hunting, if you please. The bones are seeking out. The bones are looking for. They're looking for the body that they belong to. Jeff, I don't understand it. That's my point. I'm not talking about I can tell you scientifically how this is being done, because how does a bone without eyes seek out another bone? How can a bone without ears hear that's supposed to be connecting to it? How does, because you do know, y'all might not know this, it's 206 bones in the human adult body. Ain't that right, Jay? How many bones in the body? 206. She knows. 206 to every body, and they're all seeking out the body that they belong to. And there was a shaking, and he says, and the bones, it's in the Bible, came together. Now, how does that happen? Because there's no sinew. So what they do, they just lined up next to each other. Do y'all see it now? Nothing was holding them at first except the preaching of the word of Yah moving them into place. And once they got in place, they just stood bone next to bone. Said, man, you know what? For some reason, I was way over yonder. Probably got blown up in some kind of roadside grenade or something. Because I don't know, man. I had to travel from this side, and somebody says I had to travel from that side. But they got together, bone to bone. And when I beheld, he said, then I looked again. That's a simple word meaning. I was able to see again. He said, and when I beheld, he said, lo, the sinew and the flesh, that's the meat, came upon him. How? How did that happen? Who brought the tendons and the muscles to the bone? This is all being done through the preaching of this prophet. But here's the part I want you to see. It says, and the flesh came upon them, and here's the part I want you to see. And the skin covered them above.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Hallelujah.
Remember I mentioned earlier that when you just see skeletal remains of bleached bones, human remains, you have no idea who they are. So now in forensics, what they try to do, and I know some of y'all watch that CSI and all that kind of stuff, what they try to do now is that they'll get a person, the remains of a person, and if they can't recognize them, they go into a lab and they do all of these different calculations and how much muscle they would have here and here and here, and then they would try to, here's the word, reconstruct the original image of the deceased person so that somebody can recognize the body and identify it. The Most High didn't have to go in no lab. He didn't need no computer. He said, I'm going to make this graveyard recognize. I'm going to make everybody in this graveyard recognizable. I'm not going to just stop with bone to bone. I'm not going to stop with the sinew. I'm not going to stop with the meat and the flesh. I'm going, watch this, to put the skin on them. And when the skin came upon them, there was still no breath. And he said unto me, prophesy, but this time, holler to the wind. This time, speak to the Ruach. Speak to the Hokodesh. Because you've done all you can do, and that is, you made the people in this graveyard through your preaching. What you were able to accomplish was, at least we can now identify who they are. But you can't go no further than that. Now it's time for me to take over. So what do I have to do? He says, this is what you do. Speak to the Ruach and say to the Ruach, thus saith Yahuwah. Oh, I'm feeling something here. Thus saith Yahuwah, come from the four winds. That means tell the wind that I said, get up from wherever you are, four corners of the world, and blow. Breathe upon these slain that they may live. So he said, I prophesied as he commanded. It's right in the Bible. And the breath, now this right here has got to be, of all of the scenes, probably the most frightening of all. All of a sudden, these corpses that have been laying here for years and years, they just went like, all at the same time. And he said, and they lived. They got up and said, sup? Somebody said, what time is it? Man, this is the Shabbat. Well, Shabbat Shalom. He said, they lived. I'm reading it. It's right in the Bible. And stood up on their, talk back, feet. And exceeding great army. That means not only were they great, they were beyond great. They exceeded great. Verse 11, and y'all been so kind to let me get this far. Verse 11, then he said unto me, son of man. Are y'all listening to me? Really listen to me. He said, these bones are the whole house of Israel. That's Israel. The ones that are talking about our bones are dry and our hope is lost and we're cut off from our parts. Who else on planet Earth fit the qualification of Israel in this passage but the Hebrew Israelite that's been called the Negro, the African American, the spook, the coon, the nigger, the porch monkey, the spear chucker? Nobody else have been cut off from their roots. Nobody's been cut off from their nation. Nobody's been cut off from their name. No one, no nation is as helpless and hopeless as we are as a nation. We don't know our name. We don't know our Yahuwah. We do not know each other. You think you are Jones, and you think you are Smith, and you think you are Green, and you think you are Hart, and you think you, and don't know that you are actually the house of Israel. And because you're so dry and so dead and so out of it, you are unrecognizable. So what Yah has to do is put the flesh back on you. And when the flesh came upon him, black flesh, he was, whoa. See, he could have just left it just no skin, but then that way we could have said color don't matter. But when he decided to put skin on him in order to, watch this, identify them. And I said, look what we're doing in this little bitty room. This message going out worldwide, 78 different countries, I think more, even with Hulu's channel. And you mean to tell me that all y'all's telling us to do is prophesy to these dry bones? And guess what happens? The bones be like, did you hear that? I said, yeah, I heard it. You do know we got to go to Fresno, right? For what? Wait a minute, hold on, I just heard it too. I guess I'm driving over. Yeah. He said, man, that's kind of strange. Or somebody will say, hey man, I'm hearing you. You coming to Atlanta, right? A group of people in Canada say, man, you coming over to Canada, right? You say, man, well, I don't understand what's going on. They said, well, watch what they're saying. We are feeling a connection. No scientific explanation, no chemicals, no lab. We don't even halfway know each other's phone number or address. All we know is, for some reason, you and I are supposed to be hanging out. We need to lay eyes on each other. We need to talk to one another. And once that happens, watch what happens. Then the Ruach does something. He says, stand up on your feet. I believe that we are in this prophecy this very day, where the house of Israel is finally standing up. Can I close with this? Y'all don't mind if I shut down with this. Watch this. I used to watch this show. I'm dating myself now. I was a little kid. It was called To Tell the Truth. Now that was before pretty much all y'all time, except for Leotis, who's close to 100, and L Voice, who's close to 100. They all know I'm telling you. And what they would do is that they would have people stand up, and each of them would claim to be somebody, the same person. It'd be 4 of them, maybe more. And they would say, my name is so-and-so, and I invented such and such and such, and I did this on such and such a day. The other person would say, no, my name is so-and-so, and I did such and such and such and such. And they would go on, and the whole idea of the game show was for the people to be convinced who is who. And the idea was the liars had to be so good that they tried to get people to pick them as the actual original person that whatever the name of the claim to fame was. And at the end of that show, the announcer guy, whoever he was, he would say, with the real, and then he put the name in, please stand up. Well, let me shut it down by saying this. I can almost hear Yah saying now, with the real Hebrew Israelites, please stand up. And you can see worldwide people do like, no. But watch this. The real ones. They standing up in Fresno. They standing up in San Francisco. They standing up in Houston. They standing up in, how can I say the name in South America? Suriname. Y'all know what I'm talking about over there. Hallelujah. They standing up all over the world and they're saying, we are Israel. We are the ones cut off. We are the ones that said all of our hope was gone. We are the ones that have been on the bottom of the totem pole of life. We are the ones that have been on them slave ships across the Atlantic and served with rigor our taskmaster. We are the ones that fulfill the prophecies of this book called the manuscript, the holy word of Yah. And as we said, he says, this marching army, when they stand up, he said they're going to praise Yah. See, one of our problems amongst our people is that our situation looks so bad, it's like we can't at all be Yah's chosen people. Think about it. We got some of the most tore up families on the planet. Think about it. When it comes to evil, as far as devising wicked schemes, you find that amongst us. Children becoming more and more disobedient to parents. Prison population increasing. Babies killed by abortion. Folks dying in gang violence, what they call black on black crime. Drugs, alcohol ripping our society apart. Sexual revolution, which is actually a devolution. It's taking over our homes and our families. We live in a society now amongst our people where we don't know Adam from Eve. Y'all catch that in a moment. When I was a child, what they was worried about in school, guess what? Was gum. G-U-M. Now what they're worried about in school is gun. G-U-N. False religion, false prophets, false doctrine, wars, rumors of wars, helplessness, obesity, heart attack, stroke, eating all manner of unclean meats, slain in the streets, left for dead, nobody cares, unidentified, everybody wondering, is there any hope for them? I was reading in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. Now the Spirit, the Ruach, the same Spirit, speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. I don't mind insulting the Christian because Christianity is a cult. What he saw in the last days concerning the house of Israel and Judah is that they would be captive to a Constantinian religion called Christianity, which is nothing more than paganism with some sprinkling of Hebrewism. It's a doctrine of the devil. For only the devil could get in a doctrine and make everybody in that doctrine lose their common sense. Only the devil has the power to make you hear in one verse, I'm going to die and I'll be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. Just like Jonah was in the belly of the earth, of the whale, 3 days and 3 nights, so shall the Son of Man be in the belly of the earth. We can read that and understand it and then still say he died on Friday and got up on Sunday morning. Only the doctrine of a devil can mess with you to where you can't count to 3.
Come on.
Wow.
Only a doctrine of the devil would tell you that it's okay to have Yah and Santa Claus and reindeer and elves and Cupid pulling back the bow and letting his lustful arrow flow. It's okay to have the Easter bunny, Easter eggs, Mother Nature, elves, fairy godmothers, pixie dust, heat miser, snow miser. It's all right because God don't care. Eat what you want, celebrate what you want, live how you want, dress how you want, because this is a religion where there is no law.
Come on, Davis.
Say, ain't no law? No. The only law is that you love each other. But watch this. The definition of love is all twisted though. Because love, watch this, is so twisted it has become a feeling and not an action. Y'all knew that day was coming that his own people would think that it's not, watch this, who you love, but that you love, which would give rise to the man-on-man marriage relationships being accepted amongst the children of Yashar'al. Woman upon woman, man. Y'all see what? Talking about, don't judge me because you don't even realize how much I love him and how much he loves me. Y'all see that? All hope look like it's gone. The last days they won't endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust heap to themselves teachers. In other words, they're not going to even keep a preacher unless that preacher is sold out to saying, watch this, what they want him to say to them. And these cemeteries that I say are seminaries, I call them cemeteries, they perpetuate that kind of thought process, as I told you in the introduction of the message, when they say, don't upset your audience. Make them feel comfortable. Make them feel relaxed. Say something that they want to hear. But that's not what's going to save our people. That's not what's going to raise up these dry bones. Many people turning their ears away from the truth shall be turned unto fable. Then what is a fable? A short story, typically with animals and characters, conveying some type of morality. And therefore, we have all of these fables in our worship today. We have all these allegories and parables. And I'm not talking about biblical parables. I'm talking about man-made stuff that have made their way into the worship. And therefore, soft and kind words is not what's going to get these dry bones to rise up. They got to be told point blank, hear you the word of Yah, you dry bones. Let me close with this. This is a valley of dry bones. The United States of America is our place of dry bones. It's where we lost our identity. It's when we could no longer recognize who you are, who I am, Hebrews got nerve to have a family reunion, and if you black and show up, they say, what's your last name? So what are you talking about? What's your last name? Oh, well, we the Bradfords. No, you ain't the Bradford. What are you talking about? You Israel. I'm Israel. No, I'm Bradford. What's your last name? No, that's your plantation. That's the plantation you came from. So now you're saying that your only family is the folk that you shared the same plantation with? No, it's going to take more than flowery sermons to shock Yashar'al from that type of spiritual damage and really psychological madness.
Man, that's good.
It's a family reunion and I can't get a piece of chicken because I didn't grow up on your plantation. I'm through. You already know. So the preacher cannot afford to, in these last days, to go along with these satanic doctrines that are messing up the mind, because Yah is raising up a people, and all I keep hearing from him is, will the real Israel please stand up? I need Judah. Stand up. I need Issachar. I need Dan. I need Naphtali. I need all of my boys. Stand up to your feet. I need my marching army. Why? Watch this. I don't need y'all to stand up to fight. Let me close with this. I need you to stand up to praise. I need you to stand up to give me the glory. I need you to stand up and be the light of the world I called you to be. Because what's getting ready to happen is once you get identified, everybody's going to be like, oh my goodness, no, please, not them. This is what they're really going to say. Now I can say this because this ain't no Christian church. Y'all just be this is what they really going to say. Anybody but the niggas. Please, not the niggas. Please. Please, not them. Why? Because the Hamites going to say, because we sold them into slavery. Please, not them. Why? Because the Europeans going to say, because we had them in chains. Because we made sure they didn't get that job. Because we whipped them and put yokes of iron around their neck. They're going to say, please, not the niggas, because they are the ones that we tell jokes about every day. We wake up in the morning, we got a nigga joke. And you mean to tell me then, oh, please, anybody. Oh, anybody but them. But the Most High going to say, no, I'm going to show my wonders and my power to the whole world when I take those who are the tail. Make them the head. And those who are the head will become the tail. And those that are of the synagogue of Hasatan, who are claiming to be the Hebrews and are not, what I've got to do is I've got to work this thing to where in the end they are going to come and bow down at your feet and have to confess to the whole world that I have loved you. It's going to happen. How long?
Help me get